Hello, my name is Robert Del Campo. Let me begin this presentation with a question. What is film? Film, in my opinion, is a work of visual art. It stimulates experience, communicates ideas, stories, and perceptions, and evokes emotion in us. The key ingredients are acting, directing, writing, cinematography, and overall production value, which all come together to tell one cohesive, entertaining, and impactful story. Many countries worldwide are known for their contributions to the art of cinema. Sweden is one of those countries, and today, Sweden will be my topic of study. The Swedish cinema is known for many acclaimed films in the 20th century. Swedish cinema began with the founding of the Svensk Biograf-Teatern in 1907. The company, which later became the Svensk Film Industry in 1919, held the monopoly on Swedish-produced films for decades and marked the beginning of Sweden's golden age of cinema. In 1909, the company hired Charles Magnusson as head of production. Magnusson had a clear vision for Swedish cinema. He wanted to put his country's films on the world stage. He did exactly that with the help of Victor Seaström and März Stiller, creating some of the best films of the silent era. One of those films is a 1921 ghost story called The Phantom Carriage. Sadly, this golden era ended with the invention of sound, which led the three pioneers, Magnusson, Seaström, and Stiller, to move to America. Sweden's artistic ingenuity would not be seen again for nearly 2 decades, which is why I chose to explore the history of Sweden's cinema. Ingmar Bergman was a Swedish film director, screenwriter, producer, and playwright. He was widely considered one of the most accomplished and influential filmmakers, and his film, The Seventh Seal, is regarded as one of the greatest films of all time. Bergman wrote and directed the Swedish 96-minute film in 1957. Set against the backdrop of the Black Plague, Max von Sydow stars as Antonius Block, a knight who returns to Sweden after the Crusades seeking answers about life, death, and the existence of God. The Grim Reaper comes calling, but Block is able to postpone death by challenging the Reaper to a game of chess that continues over a period of time. Bergman submitted his script to his production company, Svensk Film Industry, which produced many of his previous films. Initially, they refused it. However, they soon changed their minds with the international success of his comedy, Smiles of a Summer Night, which won the Jury Special Award at the Cannes Film Festival. Bergman decided to give Svensk Film Industry a second chance at the script. Although Alan Eklund is listed as a producer for The Seventh Seal, according to the personal archives of Ingmar Bergman, it was the studio itself, Svensk Film Industry, that greenlit the production. Ingmar Bergman states, "I flew down to see the head of Svensk Film Industry, Carl Anders Demling. I found him sitting in a hotel room in Cannes, France, while at the film festival, overexcited and out of control, selling Smiles of a Summer Night dirt cheap to any horse trader who happened to show up." Bergman continues, "I placed the refused screenplay for The Seventh Seal in his lap and said, 'Now or never, Carl Anders.' He said, 'Sure, but I have to read it first.' Bergman replied, 'You must have already read it since you turned it down.' 'That's true, but maybe I didn't read it careful enough,' Anders responded. Demling eventually gave his consent to the project, but only granted Bergman a minuscule budget of $150,000 and a shooting schedule of 36 days. Shooting began on July 2nd, 1956 and ended on August 24th, 1956, 17 days beyond his allotted time. The film had a worldwide gross of over $298,000. First, The Seventh Seal differs significantly from the other films Bergman wrote and directed. This film showcases the director's unique style and understandable symbolism, mainly through Bennett Urquhart's prominent and enduring personification of death. Death is a favorite theme in his films. However, none of Bergman's movies confront death as directly and accessibly as The Seventh Seal. This movie has become legendary for its boldness and what I consider to be raw filmmaking. What do I mean by the term raw? Bergman as a director is not afraid to tackle in-your-face questions like, does God exist? And if he does exist, can we contact him in a tangible way? Can life genuinely have meaning if God does not exist or is silent? As a Christian filmmaker, director, and producer, these are the raw questions I would love to address and have interwoven into my stories. One of the things I love about The Seventh Seal is how Bergman's characters demonstrate the various human responses to the imminence of death. The knight desperately seeks faith but is trapped by his doubt. His squire wittingly and cynically represses his fear of death at every turn. The mute girl seeks rest and comfort in oblivion. The witch tries to convince herself that she can communicate with a higher power in an attempt to console herself during her unjust execution. Though these human reactions to death are common, Bergman's characters remain authentic. Bergman effectively develops each character as a clock ticks towards doomsday. This authenticity makes Bergman a master of his craft and The Seventh Seal an uncompromising movie. I can't dissect the whole movie, but I would like to discuss the opening scene. Cinematographer Gunnar Fischer's camera work tells the story in high contrast, black and white, capturing iconic and much copied compositions, each more memorable than the last. His framing creates a film portfolio worthy of still photography. The Seventh Seal is a movie where I think the cliche, every frame is a painting, certainly applies. Let's examine the opening scene. Set during the Middle Ages, the opening shot of The Seventh Seal begins with the shades of dark, ominous clouds that cast gloom and doom, blocking the warmth and light of the sun. The various shades of black and white are fully displayed as Fischer's camera captures the 60-30-10 rule in the picturesque first few shots. Why does Bergman open up with this shot? In my opinion, this one shot tells us the film's central theme. Our protagonist, who seeks God, light, is hindered by the cloudiness and darkness of his lack of faith, to the point of doubting God's existence. The ethereal rendition of the Latin hymn Des Irae plays in the background of the shot, making it epic. The second shot's imagery signifies that death is like a black bird hovering between man and God. Death seeks to claim his next victim, while Bergman brings home this point by using silence in the shot. Bergman enters the scene with some high-angled establishing shots. He then uses a medium close-up shot of our protagonist, Knight Antonius Block, played by Max von Sydow. He awakens on a stone-covered beach, having just returned from the Crusades, a failure, along with his contemptuous Squire Jans, played by Gunnar Bjorkstrand. There he finds death waiting for him. Enshrouded in a black cloak, the pale-faced death appears in a soundless materialization. Now this is brilliant filmmaking, and we've only covered the first few shots of the film. The Seventh Seal possesses some of the world's most recognizable film imagery, beginning with the knight's fateful chess game with death and continuing to the eerily joyful dance in the final frames when death claims his victims. This film is Bergman's most celebrated masterpiece and has proven to be timeless. As with all distinctive art pieces, Bergman's enduring themes will never lose their potency, intellect, or meaningful purpose. Bergman exposes us to his uncertainty and his search for meaning and forces the audience to do the same. Undoubtedly, in my opinion, Ingmar Bergman is one of the greatest filmmakers and directors of all time. Internationally, the film was received with universal praise. In France, Eric Romer pronounced it as one of the most beautiful films ever made, and the American film critic Andrew Sarris called it an existential masterpiece. The Seventh Seal went on to win a number of international awards, including the French Film Academy's Grand Prix International d'Avant-Garde. Rotten Tomatoes gave the film a 94% certified fresh ratings and an audience score of 93%. I would like to talk about a very interesting Swedish gloom film that actually made me laugh, shed a few tears. With a 1 hour and 56-minute runtime, this film was an emotional roller coaster ride that I didn't want to get off of. I literally couldn't stop watching it. The film is called A Man Called O.V. Directed and written for the screen by Hannes Holm, and stars Rolf Lassgård, who knocked it out of the park with his performance as O.V. The story is about O.V., a bitter 59-year-old man who wants to commit suicide to be with his late wife. However, when a family moves in next door, he forms an unexpected friendship that makes him reevaluate his life. The film was made in 2015 and rated PG-13 for some disturbing images, language, and thematic content. The genre is comedy drama and has earned its place as a top must-see Swedish film. If you don't mind a few commercials, you can watch it as I did for free on Amazon Prime. Looking through the lens as a producer, I was fascinated and taken back by the production costs of the film. According to the website TheWrap.com, A Man Called O.V. was shot in 35 days and get this, and cost $300,000 to produce. Wow. According to this article, this is a typical budget for Swedish films. The film was produced by Annika Balander for Tre Vänner in cooperation with Film Ivas, Subvergis Television, and Nordisk Film with the support from the Swedish Film Institute. A Man Called O.V. is based on the best-selling Swedish novel by Fredrik Backman, published in 2012. Over 7 million copies have been sold worldwide, and the book rights have been sold to more than 30 countries. It remained on the New York Times bestseller list for 77 consecutive weeks. According to Hannes Holm, this was his first time adapting a novel for the big screen, something he admitted he felt embarrassed about. I never adapted a novel before because I write my own stories, and this was the first time I took someone's story, he said. I felt quite embarrassed to steal a story like that. And he didn't want to do it at first, he said, knowing that these book lovers would be highly critical of any screen adaptation. But producer Annika Balander managed to persuade him. She was smart. She left the novel on the table in the restaurant we were at, he explained. I left our meeting with a copy of the novel in hand, and out of sheer curiosity, I decided to open the book that evening. Before I knew it, the evening became night, and then night turned into morning. A Man Called O.V. isn't simply a comedy. It's altogether a beautiful, heartwarming, funny, sad, and melancholic tale about a man and his life. By the end of the story, I was moved to tears. I called her the next day and said, I want to do this. The film premiered in Sweden on Christmas Day 2015 and has been a massive hit with over 1.7 million admissions at the box office, the third most successful domestic film ever in Sweden. As I stated earlier, the film was produced for $300,000 with an estimated US and Canada gross of $3,500,000 and a worldwide gross of $30,693,000. Not bad. With cinematographer Göran Hallberg, Hans Holmes discussed revealing O.V.'s life at the film's beginning using direct and static shots. Then, when he interacts with his new neighbor, Per Vane, the camera moves more smoothly using Steadicam shots in the film. Hannes Holm stated that as a director, he wanted to shoot the film from O.V.'s point of view. It's this man's story from his point of view, and we are with him all the time, he explains. He's stubborn, thinks everybody's an idiot, and is a kind of a rectangular person. So we decided that we should shoot him from straight in front when he's walking. The film's colors reinforce O.V.'s character and feelings, particularly as Hallberg and Holmes' shooting plan began March and April. There was quite a bit of clouds in the sky, and the light was blue-gray, Hallberg says. We then did some interiors for a couple of weeks, and when we shot the end of the film outside, it was spring and summer, which fits perfectly in with the mood of the story. Also, Hallberg states that in the film, O.V. goes to a different house and everything is warmer and freer, which is represented with handheld camera shots. A Man Called O.V. was shot on ARRI Alexa SXT Plus with Cooke anamorphic lenses, the first Swedish production to use them. Hallberg stated that he likes to use anamorphic primes, particularly the 40 and the 60mm. It's O.V.'s story, so we must be near him. Close-up shots were needed in this film. The editing and pacing of the film were right on target. The film's editor, Fredrik Moore Hayden, paces the film beautifully as he craftily controls the film's shot length, dialogue, and movement, guiding the viewers into the emotional impact and helping us enter in each scene. He also incorporated the right amount of reaction shots that give the audience time to feel and process what the characters are feeling. The beauty of this film was the colors used in almost every shot. Hannes Holms incorporated the colors of Sweden, with the dominant colors being blue, yellow, and burgundy of various shades. Here are a few examples. Watching this film, I have to give props to Hannes Holms. As a director and as the one who adapted the screenplay from the book, he is the real genius of this film. As a filmmaker and film enthusiast, I highly recommend this movie. The film was nominated for 6 awards, winning 2 at the 51st Goldbag Awards in Sweden 2016. It was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film and Best Makeup and Hairstyling categories at the 89th Academy Awards. It has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes and a rating of 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb. At the moment, the future of Swedish mainstream cinema and OTT does not look bright. They're not expected to be in the top ranking for filmmaking or the film market. However, the Swedish government is hoping to lure filmmakers by providing a 25% filming incentive worth 10.1 million that will be introduced this year, although its implementation will most likely be pushed to 2023. Swedish films are struggling. In 2020, the number of feature films released dwindled, hitting one of the lowest points in decades, no thanks to COVID. In 2021, Sweden released 265 feature-length films. 40 went to a streaming service or on television, and 225 were theatrical releases. In 2021, North American films ranked first, followed by European films. Swedish films came in third for feature-length film releases either at the cinema or on streaming services or on television. There has been both change and decline in Swedish cinema. It remains unclear what its recovery will look like or how it will develop in the future. The coming years will require major changes for both individual players as well as the market to entice audiences back to the theaters. But there is a ray of hope for the Swedish film market, and that brings us to our next point. This year came the most extensive collaboration ever made between Hollywood and Swedish SF Studios. SF Studios' mega English language project, A Man Called Otto, starring Tom Hanks, has just wrapped its shoot in Pittsburgh. The film, directed by Mark Foster, is a US remake of A Man Called O.V., based on Fredrik Backman's best-selling book. Producer Fredrik Wickstrom Nicastro and SF Studios SVP International Production declared SF Studios has fully financed the film and is the lead producer, producing alongside Rita Wilson and Playtone partners Tom Hanks and Gary Goldsmith. This makes A Man Called Otto the biggest film for the SF Studios in 102 years and the biggest one ever coming out of the Nordic region. "We're so excited," said the producer, who reiterated SF Studios' international strategy is to create the highest quality projects with Nordic talents and nurture stories that they are passionate about. Wickstrom Nicastro said Tom Hanks, who came up with the new title, is passionate about playing the main role and gives a moving performance. Sony Pictures picked up the world rights to the movie after a fierce bidding war for a whopping $60 million deal, ranking it among the highest deals ever out of the European film market. The film is expected to launch at Christmas. If the film is a success, it could help facilitate future collaborations between Hollywood and Swedish films as a whole. In conclusion, Swedish cinema has gained international acclaim over the years because of its original and innovative approach to filmmaking. People, including myself, have developed a love for Scandinavian movies. Its burgeoning popularity in the 20th century made Swedish cinema one of the most prominent in the world. We can contribute this success to directors such as Ingmar Bergman and his classic film The Seventh Seal, and to Hannes Holm, who directed the film A Man Called O.V. In my opinion, Sweden is a mission field ready for harvest. Sweden, as well as many other countries, have opened their markets to outside films. The potential is great to reach Sweden's audiences with redemptive films showing God's love and attributes. This is an excellent time to reach the world. My goal as a filmmaker is not to make preachy, cliche, run-of-the-mill Christian movies. It is my desire to preach without preaching. And how will I go about this? by producing high-quality films that will reach an audience, touch them through great characters and great stories. Yes, it may be a difficult task, but I intend to follow my heart, my passion, and my conviction. It is what drives me as a filmmaker. It may sound impossible, but as Jesus said in Mark 10:27, with men it is impossible, but not with God. For with God all things are possible.